With another Wednesday video comes another sit down chat with y'all where I can basically just talk to y'all, openly about the thoughts that I'm having on certain topics in the credit card game. It's honestly been really nice to be able to do this with y'all in a less serious format, and I hope that you continue to enjoy them as much as you say you have in the comments of my previous videos that have been made in this style. And honestly, thank y'all for that constant interaction and commenting on my channel. Like, that really is why I do this, and I'm just so happy to be a part of this community with y'all. One thing I'll mention on that front is that if you are somebody that wants your questions and comments answered by me and seen by me every single time you leave one, I want to invite y'all to join the Credit Club, which is my membership for this channel. And on top of one of the biggest perks being that I do actually give you priority responses to your comments and my members' comments only, you also get things like a cool badge next to your name that will change colors as you add more months to your membership, as well as some custom emojis that I've created for y'all. And you'll have access to members only content when it comes to things like community posts about announcements for my channel that might not make sense on my main channel. And I hope to maybe do some members only live streams and stuff like that in the future. But for now, I just want to plug it as a way for y'all to get your comments seen by me as the channel continues to grow. I wish that I had the time to answer every single one of y'all's comments, no matter if you are a member or not. But in reality, this is just a way for me to be able to see the comments from my most loyal subscribers who are constantly leaving comments for me to answer. I don't want to lose that in-depth interaction that I have with y'all, so this is my way of doing that. It's not just a cash grab. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what we were talking about today. Oh yeah, that's right. I basically want to walk y'all through my new credit card plan as well as just my new credit card thought processes, because after the last few months, I've had a lot of experience in the credit card game, and that has helped shape some new opinions of mine that I, of course, want to share with y'all in this video. This video isn't just a credit card roadmap like I've done in the past, because I want to first start by telling y'all about my past few months in the credit card game and the experiences that I've had there. I also want to explain how my stances on credit cards have evolved because of my recent history. And of course, at the end, I'm still going to tell y'all about the new cards I plan on adding and basically just everything I'm going to do next in the credit card game. So naturally, let's start by telling y'all what I've been doing for the past few months. For starters, as y'all know if you've been following the channel for a while, I've been gardening my Chase 524 status for quite some time now. To briefly explain what the heck I just said actually means, the Chase 524 rule is one of the most infamous rules in the entire credit card game that basically states if you've been approved for 5 or more personal credit cards in the last 24 months from any lender, Chase will automatically deny you for your next credit card application with them. So what I mean by gardening is basically just me trying to get back under 524 with Chase, or 5 credit cards in the past 24 months that I've applied for. The main ways that people are going to do this is by either just sitting on their hands and doing nothing, or by applying for business credit cards, since business credit cards generally do not report to your personal credit report, which means that they don't add to your 524 count. And the reason those are really the only two main options is because if you were to apply for another personal card, of course your 524 status will increase, which will force you to wait even longer before you can get approved for any more Chase cards. If this whole 524 rule thing is still confusing to y'all, don't worry, I did make a full video about this rule in particular. So if you want to watch that one later, feel free to do so. But with the options at hand here, y'all know me, I'm not going to just sit on my hands and not do anything. So my one main option here was to apply for business credit cards while I wait for my status to drop lower than 524. Now, first of all, I want to note that technically I've kind of always been gardening in a way in the credit card game in the past, 2 or so years that I've been doing it. But as for this official garden phase that I'm in, my last personal credit card application was in February for the Capital One Venture X. So I guess if you use that as the time frame for, when I started gardening this time, that's been about 4 or 5 months that I've been seriously trying to get under 524. I will note that, like I said, I've been gardening for a while because before I even got the Venture X, I had applied for 2 business credit cards before the Venture X, because once again, I wanted to stay close to under 524 if I could help it. Of course, this rule isn't as important to everybody, because if you're somebody that doesn't care about Chase cards, then the 524 rule doesn't really affect you. But considering Chase is my number one lender, or the points that I like to use the most and get the most value from, Chase's credit cards are super important to me, especially because you can get multiple sign-up bonuses on each of their cards. But going back to what I was saying earlier, again, y'all know me, I'm not going to sit on my hands and just literally do nothing in the credit card game. So even after I applied for the Capital One Venture X, I took a few more steps to help me accumulate a lot of points with other ecosystems really fast. The first thing I did was I actually applied for the Amex Amazon Prime business card, and I did that in April, which was like a month and a half, I think, after I got the Venture X, since I applied for the Venture X in late February. So it was a little bit aggressive for me to apply for a card that quickly, at least for my liking, but the Prime business card actually does not have any minimum spending requirement for the welcome bonus on that card. And the reason I wanted to apply for that card was because I had a purchase coming up on Amazon that I really could use the gift card that comes with the welcome bonus for that card for. While on one hand, it's really nice that that card did not have any kind of minimum spending requirement, that also means that all of that spend that I had been doing from February to April, and then of course all the way up until now, none of that spend was going towards a welcome bonus with the current plan that I had. So I knew that something needed to change because I couldn't just let all that spend go to waste. Now at this point, you may be thinking, well, why not just apply for another business credit card? And of course I did have that thought thought crossed my mind, but I figured, now wasn't the exact right time for me to do so because I was trying to cut down on my spending a lot, and the minimum spending requirements for business credit cards in general are pretty high. And of course, personal credit cards are out of the question because I'm at 524 right now and I need to drop under it, which does not happen until September. And I just, I don't want to accidentally sacrifice another 524 slot if I don't have to. Funny enough though, I sit here saying that and I forget to mention that I did actually really try to get the Amex Platinum card actually. And the reason I did that was because the Platinum card was coming with a 150,000 Amex membership reward point offer plus $200 worth of statement credits after spending $6,000 in the first 6 months of having the card. Now that is an insane welcome bonus. It was the highest one that I'd personally ever seen on the Platinum, and since Amex has a once in a lifetime welcome offer rule, it made sense for me to at least try to apply for it, even though I'd be pushing myself further out of 524 to 624 at that point, which would restrict me from getting Chase cards for another 4 months. Now for those of y'all that have seen the videos I've made about this, I did actually get stuck in pop-up jail with Amex's Platinum card. So of course I didn't actually end up adding another personal card, meaning my 524 status stayed the exact same, which is, good for me now since I'm about to be under 524. But at the same time, I would have really been happy with that bonus. Both the Chase 524 rule and Amex pop-up jail are super annoying, and I've made videos on both of those topics specifically because of how annoying they are. So I'm not going to harp on them too much here, but just know that it does suck to get thrown in pop-up jail. Sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise though. But now you may be wondering, okay, then what did you do if you were still going to try to get points on your cards for all that spend you were doing for that, 6 to 8 month period or whatever it was? And the answer to that is a different strategy that I haven't talked about, and that is retention offers. Funny enough, the timing worked out extremely perfectly to where I knew that I could possibly get a retention offer on one of my cards come June. And the card in question here is my Amex Gold card, which actually turned 1 on June 9th, I believe. But let's get back to the basics real quick. What is a retention offer? A retention offer is something that you can request from a lender when you're considering canceling or downgrading a card. When you do this, the lender might offer you a statement credit or some points to help offset that annual fee. Sometimes it has a spending requirement to get those points or statement credits. Sometimes it has nothing and they just give you the points or money because they want to keep you as a customer. But the great thing about my Amex Gold coming up on its 1 year anniversary is that Amex is one of those lenders that is, very open to giving retention offers to people. So just about a month or so ago, whenever my annual fee posted on my Amex Gold card for $250 for year 2 of holding the card, I decided to hit up Amex's chat feature and ask them for a retention offer where I was offered a 30,000 point retention offer after spending $3,000 in 3 months. Of course, I made a full video where I did go in depth about this process as well, so you could check that video out after this one if you want to. But that kind of solved my problem right there. I knew that I had just gotten a welcome bonus on my Capital One Venture X at the end of February. So now we're talking roughly 3 to 4 months later, which is, usually my cadence in applying for new credit cards. I'm now technically spending towards a bonus, but it's a retention bonus rather than a welcome offer. So at the time of me recording this, I actually just hit the retention offer on my gold card today. So what that means is I got a free 30,000 points for just spending like normal on my Amex Gold card. And if I wouldn't have asked for that retention offer, of course I wouldn't have gotten it. So it really was just as easy as hitting up their chat feature and just explaining why I might be considering canceling this card. Also, I should mention that I got 30,000 more Amex points in the last few months because I actually applied for the American Express business checking account, and the welcome offer on that one was for 30,000 more Amex points after doing, certain requirements, which I also made a video about, of course. So technically, even though I haven't gotten a new Amex card in quite some time, I think over a year now, I guess if you don't count the Amex Business Prime card, I've gotten 60,000 points without opening any new cards. But that's really all I've been up to the last few months. Oh, and also maybe now's a good time too to just mention real quick that I'm definitely in a completely different studio than y'all are used to. And I did want to actually walk around making this video like I normally do, but I don't have like anything really set up yet. The room is looking pretty good, but I only have my one light here. My computer's not set up, and I'm just kind of wanting to get a video out and doing it in the most casual way possible. So I am sitting at my desk under my one studio light, which is the only light that I can actually use to light my setup right now. But many more videos to come from this set, and I'm really excited to show y'all all that this property has to offer. Now, going back to my new stance on credit cards, don't worry, I'm still on team credit cards. I didn't go full Dave Ramsey on you here by any means, but the more experience I get and the more time I spend in the credit community, the more I realize that I have differing thoughts that come up. So I figured let's go ahead and just cover some of the topics of discussion that have been prevalent in my mind recently. And I'd like to start with the topic of annual fee cards first. I don't know how many videos of mine I'm going to plug in this video, but I did also make a recent recent video about whether or not annual fee credit cards are really worth it. But after making that video, I started to think a little bit more about the prospect of like having cards that have very little annual fees on them. Of course, my main take in that entire video was that if you are somebody on team travel, you're not going to get very far at all in the credit card game without annual fee credit cards. That's literally kind of the whole point of a travel setup, is to have cards with really great benefits, but those benefits only come if you are paying for an annual fee. At the same time though, that doesn't mean that I can't consolidate some of my annual fees on cards that don't make sense for me anymore, even if they are a really popular card. You might have sensed a little bit of that emotion in my Amex trifecta video I posted this weekend, but I genuinely think that a lot of people in the credit card game are just overspending on their credit cards for no good reason. Of course, the people that are watching these videos and are in the credit community constantly are probably pretty smart about their credit cards and aren't going to be overspending, but I worry that people get cards like the really expensive cards in the Amex trifecta because they've heard that's what they should do, and they don't ever actually do the math for themselves to see whether it's actually worth it. And I don't care what you say. When I say whether it's actually worth it, it doesn't mean that you make up some number that sounds really good and you start checking off credits that you say are going to work for you, but you never would have paid for previously. That doesn't count here. What I mean by cards that are actually worth it for you are cards that have credits that you would have paid for before getting the credit card, or one that you are now comfortable paying for up front on that new credit card. Because if neither of those are true and you add a credit card with those perks and count that towards lowering your effective annual fee on the card, you're just being dumb. That's some harsh truth, but honestly, I think people need to hear it. Okay, so enough about that. I also wanted to talk about hotel and airline cards because I feel like I've had a switch flip in my brain recently to where I really see the power in these credit cards when I didn't necessarily before. I guess that's not really true. I know that they are powerful, but for me personally, they had no value in my life before a few weeks ago when I really started to consider these. I guess the consideration started a bit before just a few weeks ago because I was debating applying for the Amex Hilton business credit card. That's kind of what kicked all this off, but I just had not been placing any emphasis on either of these types of credit cards because I was like, well, I don't really need them. I like general travel credit cards with transferable currencies where I can kind of pick where I put my points, but I've seen that there is just so much value that can be had in a one good hotel card or one good airline card added to your setup. I have been talking about wanting to apply for the World of Hyatt card down the line, and recently I've just realized how much of a good idea that really is for my setup. I think I also talked about this in that annual fee video I was talking about earlier, but in reality, those cards easily justify themselves if you just make one trip a year with whatever hotel or airline you're getting a card from, at least in general. For example, the World of Hyatt card gives you one free night a year at a category 1 through 4 hotel with Hyatt, and if you value those rooms at anywhere from $300 to $500, then the $95 annual fee that comes on this card is super easily justifiable every single year because you're paying $95 for a $300 to $500 room. The same concept applies whenever you're talking about airline cards because of their companion certificates or just free check bags and stuff like that. So the more and more I think about it, the more I feel like I probably should add one of each of those cards to my setup with the main hotels and airlines that I travel with the most. That's going to come into play in part 3, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And the last main topic I wanted to talk about in this section was team cashback versus team travel. Now, for those of y'all that know me, you know that I am on team travel. However, I have a massive respect for people on team cashback, even though a lot of people on team travel don't seem to. At the end of the day, credit cards are here to be a tool for us to help us earn some rewards back for our spending and put some extra cash in our pocket in the form of travel or actual cash. So even though someone on team cashback is not necessarily getting the same value that you are whenever you book your Maldives trip, which you never actually book by the way, that doesn't mean that what they do is any less valuable inherently than what you do. So that's why I keep saying that one day I could see myself being on team cashback with just a few travel cards that supplement that setup, because in reality, team cashback is so simple. We spend so much time on team travel thinking about the redemptions we're going to do, and half the time, like I said, we don't even take those redemptions because it's just so much mental math that has to go into it before you actually make the booking. For team cashback, you're just automatically redeeming cash into your bank account and you're building wealth that way, and that's completely fine. I kind of just wanted to bring it up because I saw actually a Q&A that RJ Financial did, and someone asked if he thought that people on team travel kind of hated people on team cashback, and that kind of got me thinking why certain people on team travel look down on people that are on team cashback, and to me it was just stupid. As RJ mentioned in that video, I feel like we all kind of have a mutual respect for each other, or at least should, no matter what team you're on. That brings us to part 3 of the video where I tell you what's next. And first, of course, in this section, I want to talk about what new card additions I might be having to my setup at the end of this year as well as into next year. Based on my most recent updated credit card roadmap video, I still think most of that information applies here. And the next card that I've been planning on applying for is the Chase Ink Unlimited in September. Now, the reason that's the card I want to apply for is because I will be under 524 in September at exactly 424, and that unlocks the ability for me to apply for any Chase credit cards. And the beauty about applying for a Chase business credit card first is that my 524 status will not increase because of that. So that had me thinking, well, why don't I just apply for the Chase Ink Unlimited next and lock in 75,000 points? And granted, that spending requirement is a bit tough, but I think that I could probably have my family help me out with it and hit it without any issues. Obviously, I'm not going to apply for the card if I think that it's going to cost me extra out of my pocket by overspending to actually hit the bonus. But again, that's a free 75,000 points without adding to my 524 account, which allows me to then apply for another Chase personal card if I want to down the line. Or I can maybe add another business card instead, and maybe I add a business, hotel, or airline card. Now, I don't really want the World of Hyatt business card because it's not justifiable at all for me with the annual fee that comes on it, so it would basically be a cancel in year 2. But one card that I haven't looked super heavily into that maybe would be worth it is the Southwest business card. As I've talked about in other videos, Southwest is who I fly the most with domestically because I live in Texas and they're just everywhere in my airport. But then again, I know that there is a strategy to where I could get a companion pass for at least a year, or I think it's actually 2 years if I do it at the right time, which would be at the end of this year. And it involves not only applying for the business Southwest card, but a personal one as well. So that might be something I save for the end of the year. But at the end of the year, I also was considering adding the World of Hyatt card because I think a couple months after the end of the year, I will have one more card fall off of my 524 status. I can't remember the exact date right now, but it's pretty soon after the new year. I will be able to apply for another Chase card if I want to. So my thought process was, again, apply for the Chase Ink Unlimited in September, maybe add the World of Hyatt card in December or something like that if I don't go this Southwest path. And then that brings us into next year where ideally I'll be moving rentals to where I actually will be paying for rent through a portal. And of course, you guessed it, that means that I do want to apply for the Built MasterCard really as soon as I can. And if I was way under 524, I'd probably add the Built MasterCard now, even though I'm not renting, because I want to get hands-on experience with that card for y'all. And it's still a really solid card in general, so I don't think I would be going wrong necessarily. But for one, it will add to my 524 account, and it also doesn't have a welcome bonus, so there's not really a push for me to get it, I guess. So that's kind of all the cards that I'm thinking about adding right now in the next few months. But of course, I'm always going to leave room open for a really good sign-up bonus that comes up on whatever card. We've been talking about the City Strata cards for God knows how long, and those haven't come out yet, so maybe there's, an end of the year push for them to make those cards actually real. And if that happens, then it'd be nice for me to be able to be under 524, already have gotten the Chase Ink Unlimited and can apply for one of those Strata cards since I'm under 524, and it won't hurt me too bad since I'll fall back under, a few months later. And another thing I wanted to touch on in this category was not necessarily new cards I plan on adding, but what cards I may be considering canceling or downgrading since this is going into like my second or third year with credit cards or something like that. And honestly, depending on how long I'm staying in my current location, the Amex Gold card actually doesn't make much sense for me. But like I mentioned earlier in this video, I did just spend towards a retention offer on it, which technically covered more than the annual fee for me for this year. So I'm not really ready to downgrade it yet. And my only other annual fee cards are going to be my Chase Sapphire Preferred and Capital One Venture X, both of which I'm still getting a ton of value from, so I'm not going to downgrade those yet. And granted, I probably won't ever downgrade the Amex Gold card unless I really move to somewhere where I'll never use it. But for this temporary move that I've done, it's not going to be a card that gives me much value at all besides the earning categories. However, I can stomach that loss since I did get a retention offer on the card. Now, I know I just mentioned about 10 different videos you can go watch after this video, but one that I haven't mentioned and I think you should watch next is going to be a video I just made about why I have so many credit cards. That video is all about point diversity and why, for me, it makes sense to have cards from 4 different lenders right now. So if you've been wondering whether you should be getting cards from just one lender or maybe multiple, I think that video is going to really help you out. I don't know if you can see either of these dogs right here behind me, but as always, Odin and Saren, and I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'll catch you guys next time.